TLC, this little corner of the internet. This is the name of the group, named by Paul van der Klee, who is a Calvinist pastor who ministers to the emotional needs of Christian and post-Christian American men who consider themselves to be middle class and see Christianity or church going as the key to remaining middle class. I got to hear of them through Jacob Fatturecci, whom I met through searching Michael Servetus after I had discovered that John Calvin, after I had discovered that it was at the behest of John Calvin that Michael Servetus was burnt at the stake in Geneva. Jacob Fatturecci attends the estuary meetings, and it was through him that I got to know the rest of this online community. Some days I have a good day and I think my comments are coming through, and other days I begin to suspect that my comments are that I am disabled from commenting, or my comments are being deleted. I don't know. I mean, is it? Well, obviously, I would like to know. I would like to know if it's AI censoring my comments, or that all my comments are being deleted by hand on an ad hoc basis. I don't know. I know that recently there have been complaints about my behaviour. What is my behaviour exactly? I mean, I guess I am known for laying it on the line, saying what I mean, and obviously for some people it's too much, and they feel they have to block me. And also recently, someone in the community has gotten into trouble over his channel, and it's now and he's now deleted his channel. But I think he is a victim of narcissism and exhibitionism, and isn't really responsible for his actions, even though he is technically he is an adult male, but maybe suffering from a few personality problems. But then this is what I think a lot of them do suffer from, and I guess I have a problem with them not expressing themselves properly, and I have diagnosed it as neurosis because they are American husbands whose First Amendment rights have been destroyed by their wives, or very efficiently suppressed, and they are too ashamed to admit it and don't want me pointing it out. Although it is actually quite important for Americans as a whole to have American husbands capable of defending principles, who are not afraid of their wives, who cannot be reasoned with, who would otherwise divorce them on the using the rules of no-fault divorce, which can be socially and emotionally devastating. So I noticed that Mrs. van der Klee has been taking more of an interest in Paul van der Klee's streams, and has been suggesting to him that after he makes a video, he has to give a short version, a summary of that video to attract more viewers. And I actually posted a comment, and then I saw that it was the one about liberal democracy and mystical religion, and yes, I guess I'm questioning the entire basis. No, I am questioning the entire basis of Christianity. It shouldn't degenerate into, voodoo Christianity, and I've noticed a lot of the people in that group are okay with astrology and sorcery and spells and stuff, and they are actually being encouraged to do so, which is disturbing. In fact, the Christian Revival Conference in Pusey House had a speaker yesterday, I think, saying that there seems to be a lot of interest in sorcery, witchcraft, and that sort of thing amongst people trying to be Christian. And one of the speakers actually seemed to be promoting paganism. And I'm sure he was wearing a dog collar. So I think the West is now approaching a very dangerous phase. And what I just heard Paul van der Klee saying about religion is kind of neocon, and I know that, fundamentally they are Islamophobes, and fundamentally they do not want to read the Quran. They do not want to see the logic of my arguments. And even if they did, they would be fearful of each other because they know each other to be Islamophobes. So the safest position for them to take is to be an Islamophobe, whether or not they feel it or not. And with the Iran war and everything, I guess there is a kind of urgency for, well, not urgency, more of a fear of being seen to be outside the group than to be seen to be defending any principle. Now, the problem of believing in sorcery is, of course, you are believing in the irrational. So now it falls to me to explain the difference, because there are people who call God, the Abrahamic God, a piece of superstition. And where does facts and logic end and superstition begin if you are supposed to believe in a God that is capable of performing miracles? So I will have to begin this explanation by saying, by telling you why astrology and sorcery and crystal balls and I think Muslims go on about arrows, divining arrows, is not allowed under Islam, and actually same thing with Judaism, because believing in sorcery and magic and consulting witches and wizards and that sort of thing is a way of cheating God. So the whole logic of believing the Abrahamic God is you'll be fine as long as you obey his laws. And even if you suffer because you obey his laws, you will be considered to be a martyr, and you will be rewarded in the next life if you sacrifice your life or suffer terribly in this life. If evil people find you sticking to your principles inconvenient, and try to get rid of you by killing you, taking your property, lowering your status, lying about you. So the whole idea of the Abrahamic moral system is that as long as you obey, and God values obedience, you'll be fine. I see that Yoav is here. Thank you, Yoav. If you'd like to come, please do. Yes, I know I am hated by the Islamophobes of the TLC, and I think one of the reasons is that they cannot argue against me, because actually Islam is a very logical religion, and also it incorporates Christianity because it acknowledges the prophethood of Jesus, and also it also incorporates the logic of Judaism. And the Abrahamic religions have certain commonalities: the Abrahamic God, laws, the prohibition against idolatry, although Christians don't quite get, perhaps they do get the prohibition against idolatry. And actually, it's very easy to understand what idolatry is, because even children understand it. It's just that there is a blind spot where Christians are concerned, and of course it is their pride and their ego, because if they were to finally acknowledge the idolatry of Christianity, then it means they have been wrong for 1700 years, and that would be very shameful to admit. But as their civilization deteriorates and the quality of their masculinity degenerates, I guess it would actually serve them to take notice. And I've also noticed that Luke has once again disabled me from commenting on his video. His latest one is him talking to one boy. And I think it's just, an hour of them, saying, I understand you, and you're, I defend you, and you don't make sense, but, And one of the things I remember Luke saying was, I've made myself vulnerable by, by talking to you and having this channel, and well, why are people being so mean? I think it's because he doesn't understand how people work, and probably refuses to do it. And he thinks he's got far more live viewers than I do, but that's because they come to hate watch him. And it may be something to do with the fact that he's married, and you can see from his surroundings that it's quite a he's got nice furniture, right? And he's got children and a wife, and I guess if he were in the army, he would be considered to be some kind of colonel, and the ortho-bros like him, and frankly, the white nationalist types. And he's also an Orthodox Christian. I think it's a terrible mistake. If you're a white nationalist and you want to be, you become a ortho-bro, you're gonna draw yourself to the attention of the authorities, who are already suspicious of new converts to Catholicism, because you're kind of just you're just putting a sticker on yourself saying, I'm a dissident. I hate liberal Christianity. I want social conservatism and the kind of Christianity we have in the West, the Catholicism and the Lutheranism and the Anglicanism. It ain't good enough. It's not based enough. And therefore I have to go to Russia and the Eastern Orthodox Church and Putin's Christianity. And they're really, okay, I know they're not very bright. And also in terms of marriage opportunities, basically they go to a church which is aging and shrinking, and they won't find any women under 50, as I'm sure Roosh V would attest. We don't know what's happened to him now, but last time I saw him, he had the beard of a tramp, so he's not in a good place. And another thing to remember if you're an ortho bro is that you're not actually supposed to marry anyone who isn't an Orthodox Christian. So it's even more strict, and you have a smaller pool of talent, and you're kind of outing yourself as a dissident. You're already showing that you don't like the established order, and you're stupid enough to join a church that isn't the church of your country, of your monarch. So there are all these dumb Britons who think converting to Orthodox Christianity somehow makes them better than the average Anglican who now goes with the social program of the libtards, right? The gay marriage, transgenderism. The only way you can actually robustly push back against all this crap is if you refer to a book of rules that says all these things that you don't agree with are not allowed, I should say. And Yoav is here. Thank you, Yoav, for coming. Welcome.
Well, thank you for inviting me in. Okay, magic.
Yes. So how are things today in Israel?
I will tell you, so just to clarify a point that was important to me. People in the TLC know the difference between prayer and magic. Magic is when you're trying to establish your will on God, or establish your will on reality through God. And they know that it's a trap you can fall into. You can try praying and by mistake fall into a practice of trying to perform magic. They are trying to avoid this pitfall as much as humanly possible.
I don't quite understand what you mean by trying to perform magic, because I think atheists pray because I think you pray when you earnestly wish for something, like don't let this terrible news that I hear be true. Please. I guess an atheist won't be saying God, but he would be, wanting something to happen or not wanting something to happen, and he would be, directing the energy of his mind into, making that hope come true. So I don't
Right.
understand your point about magic.
I have a very neat trick how to avoid getting confused between the two. I just don't pray. Therefore, I will never fall into magic.
But don't you sort of wish for things?
Yes, I wish for things, but I do not present. I don't petition God to fulfill my wishes. The way that some of them will answer it, they will say, well, it is, for example, it is my best understanding that the regime of the Ayatollahs in Iran should fall. So I can pray to God and ask him to make that happen. but with the full understanding that perhaps I do not understand. Perhaps it is the better if the regime of the Ayatollah General will stay. And if God will examine my prayer and refuse it, then I will accept it just as well as if he agreed with me. I think this is what they say. This is how many of them will define how to avoid the trap of turning a prayer into magic.
Well, the thing is, we don't even know. I mean, let's suppose our prayers are answered. I mean, there's a verse in the Quran that says, if your prayers are answered, the atheist will say, "Oh, it was going to happen anyway. It was, it was nothing to do with God. It was just going to happen anyway. So I don't have to be grateful." And there's also another verse that says, even if I did perform miracles, you would find a reason to attribute the miracle to something else other than God. So there isn't, much point in it. And then there's, these verses about, some people just, they are beyond guidance, and there's no point trying to tell them anything. But what I was trying to say is that if we're encouraged to believe in, astrology and Ouija boards and crystal balls, we are, in fact, denying denying God, which is why Judaism, Christianity, and Islam tells people that sorcery is not allowed, and that's all I'm saying.
Okay,
really.
I agree with you that people should not get themselves busy with astrology and Ouija board and such. We are in agreement on that. If you find anybody in the TLC who sins those sins, maybe next time we talk with him, we can point it to him gently. You have to talk to the specific person at the specific case. You cannot. And now, again, about prayer. The TLC is a distant offshoot of Jordan Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
And Jordan Peterson was very specific about prayer. And he would say that though he is not necessarily considering himself as religious, he still would find it useful to pray as a psychiatrist. And he says that you should, at the end of the day, sit at the edge of the bed and pray as a means of negotiating with the future, negotiating with your future self, and what do you really? Because some people are not very clear about what they want to become, and if they want to become anything at all.
Yes, and I would agree with him, because I think prayer should be is a therapeutic way of directing our thoughts. In that, well, if God exists, what would we ask him for? And usually, people say, I just want one little thing, just one little thing, and they already know what it is that they want. While there are other people who say things like, "Oh, just make me happy," and which is too vague. So the whole idea, I think, once it begins, this desire for something to happen or not happen is, it always begins. And I remember as a child, having all these things I wanted, and being aware of God, the idea of God, and it always begins, God, if you exist, I'd like, this thing. And then of course you think, oh, well, I don't know if I deserve it, so I'm going to be a good girl. And then you say, oh, but I've been a good girl. therefore I deserve this thing I'm asking. Or if you haven't been, a good boy, or, then you think, well, I know I haven't been, the best person, but I'm going to be better to make myself worthy of this thing that you're going to give me, God. Yes, please. That kind of internal dialogue that I think is actually helpful. For us personally, even if God doesn't exist.
Well, I wouldn't formulate it as you did. I would have formulated the same thing differently. In the Jordan Peterson formulation, God is the future personified. And one realizes that one cannot get everything. And one should set priorities according to, one should put things on a hierarchy. What is more important, what is less important.
Mm-hmm.
And then one should make a sacrifice while praying, letting go of the things that are not necessarily, the things that are less important, in order to achieve the thing that are deemed more important. So it is a process of negotiating with the future personified, and isn't as in relating to the concept of being a good girl, what need I do to get those selected most important thing that I really want to do, and doing in the future those things that will achieve the best result is what is called being good.
Yeah, so with the Abrahamic God, he has, given us a few rules that we can easily remember. The 10 Commandments, the 7 no-hide laws. So, we can't pretend we don't know that we're not supposed to kill or steal or, commit, sexual immorality and the other stuff. So I guess, we already know, even atheists already understand, because you need to understand what God is in order to reject the idea of his existence. So the idea of God is kind of pretty general, even to people who reject the idea of his existence. And then, it becomes very easy to kind of just pull all the threads, in to, make a point. I think it would just be easier if the government supported a belief in God, because then everybody would think, oh yes, well, our government is supported by God because it believes in God, because that was what all the kings, the absolute monarchs of ancient times would do. When they accepted the bargain of the Roman Catholic Church, because otherwise they would just be warlords who were good at fighting, and but eventually even gangsters, even the mafiosi, want to be thought of as good people, and want people to think they are the best available leader in the country, and they want some kind of protection and moral endorsement that they wouldn't otherwise get through mere force of arms.
Well, there are a lot of things to cover. Jordan Peterson was always talking about the individual, sitting at the edge of his bed and basically talking to himself. And now you are expanding this to societies and kingdoms. That is related to the question whose interpretation should I trust? Because Jacob, for example, teaches that one should not trust oneself in making moral judgments, but one should appeal to the proper higher moral authority. But that's the trick. Who do you choose? I mean, it's again you that has to choose your proper moral authority to appeal to. And there were lots of, there are well-known cases of societies, for example, the Catholic Church, in which a group of people have appealed to an organization whose head is the Pope, and the Pope would delegate a king. There are other organizations. The Bible is basically the story of the people of Israel deciding that they're going to appeal to a king, and how this has blew up in their face. And the Bible is trying, perhaps, to teach us who should we have appealed to. There are prophets in the Bible, quite a lot of them, but some are known in the Bible to lie. So you close that book still not knowing what to do and having to decide everything by yourself.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned monarchy, Yoav, because we know from the history of Jews that they had terrible kings, didn't they? Even
Quite
King
correct,
Solomon, your best king, died an idolater because, well, he had so many wives and concubines, and then
He was not the best; he was the wisest.
Yes,
I'm
and
not
in the
calling
end,
best.
wasn't he the most glorious, the wealthiest, and the most famous?
Yes,
He
glorious and rich, yes,
mhm,
and wise. But I
yes.
can tell you what his mistake was. He was a human being, wise as he was. He made one stupid mistake. He was high enough in degree to have talked with God face to face. But wise as he was, he didn't realize who he was talking to. He thought he was talking to the God of the Hebrews, while in fact he was talking to the God of the world. And that was his failure. And yes, he was a human being of the highest rank, but still made one huge mistake.
And it was?
Not realizing that the God he was speaking to is not only the God of the Hebrew, but the God of the world.
I see now. Yes. But I think it should become reasonably clear with regard to Western history, because not only did Jews have terrible kings, so did Christians, and also so did Muslims. Because even the Sunnis who talk about their four rightly guided caliphs, the fact that they talk about these four rightly guided caliphs meant all the others after the four rightly guided caliphs were not up to the job. And therefore the crucial difference is whether we want to be a monarchy or a republic. And I don't think Westerners to this day get the difference. Certainly the British do not. The Americans, I think they're forgotten. They're forgotten. A lot of them actually want a king. It's disgusting.
Well, the British king has forgot what is to be king, so never mind the British. Okay, again, referring to Jordan Peterson, because this is about the TLC, and the TLC is Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson would say, we cannot know what is good. It's too complicated for us, but we can identify bad. So let's mark the bad and turn 180 degrees from it and start walking. And yes, this is why the Bible is a list of bad kings. So you will have as much examples as possible to what is bad. So you can turn 180 degrees from that and start working towards the good.
Well, I think a lot of philosophers they talk about good and evil, but they never define it. And I think it's actually impossible to define unless you accept that there is a hypothetical supreme authority, and it is a divine moral authority, and then you can say quite easily that what God forbids is evil and what he commands is good, and that's it. And then we will know what is good and evil in one sentence.
Okay. Again, the Jordan Peterson answer is that there is no good and bad. We know bad, and we can start walking towards the good. We actually have no hope in hell in actually meeting the good and knowing it.
Well, a lot of people talk about good and evil like everybody already understands what it is.
Yeah. Skywalk 69 asks, what is the scope of my intellect? The question is 0 compared to that of God's.
Yeah, well, you're talking like a believer, so you're kind of swinging between belief and. Are you agnostic?
Well,
Would you say now that you're agnostic?
The question is, why bother with TLC? And TLC is an offshoot of Jordan Peterson's sphere. And
Yes.
Jordan Peterson is to the best of my knowledge, to this day, he has not put his foot in either camp. He will, whenever you ask him whether he believes in God, he will give you the maddening answer, well, what is God? So he will not answer the question.
There's only the Abrahamic God. There's no point talking about any other God, is there? There's no point talking about Spinoza's God, because we're only talking about the most powerful one.
Yeah, but that's the question he will put in front of you. You said, what? If you ask me if I believe in God, please define this God. What God is that you want me to answer about? And he will leave you frustrated. So I'm sorry. As a follower of Jordan Peterson, I just will not answer.
Well, I don't suppose
I will
you
be
can.
polite. I will polite and not. I will not try to lead you around in sophistry.
Well, I mean, that's the problem with Jordan Peterson. He won't even say if he believes in God, and that undermines his position on everything, because you do actually have to take a position if you're going to be talking about morality and that sort of thing. If you don't believe in God, then you can have your own argument. But I think this his incoherent position has probably driven him mad. And that's not surprising. And I think, if he'd been more sensible, he would say, well, I'm agnostic, but I see the point of religion, because all great civilizations have some sort of religion. And, it does appear that Christians and Muslims have derived their religions from Judaism, and then we get back to the Abrahamic God, which is the most powerful being conceivable. So, and there has been an argument. It's like, and they say Jews are the evidence of God's existence because they have the hardest religion, and
No,
everybody hates them,
human
and they
beings
should
are
be
there.
extinct.
No, human beings are the evidence. Of course, not Jews. Human beings. How would you explain human beings?
Well, unless there is, the mass extinction of humans, there will be humans, and then you divide humans up into, well, you can divide them into nations or religious groups. So the most powerful empire is the Christian empire.
But you have to admit, divide them or not, you have to admit that human beings exist.
Yes, and we want to know which ones are the most powerful.
No, it doesn't matter. They're talking about. I cannot for the life of me explain how come human beings exist. I'm stuck in front of that question, and I just cannot answer. I'm not trying to avoid the question. I'm trying to find the question, but I'm failing miserably.
Well, I mean, the story is that God created us, and here we are.
Okay. That's the story.
Or
But
we
again,
evolved into humans from apes.
and
That's
that's
the
and that's
story.
another story. But that second story, the evolution from apes, from fish, it just doesn't make sense. It's impossible. It's mathematically impossible.
Okay. So so it seems that you accept the divine narrative. You
No,
your
I don't expect.
secularism is leaving you.
No, what narrative? The story in Genesis. The story in Genesis is contradicting itself. I mean, it's two chapters talking in two voices, and not really meaningful.
Sorry, I don't understand this two voices thing you just said.
There are two first chapters in the Genesis giving you the
Mhm.
same story twice differently. So Genesis is not even pretending to give you the answer.
What about God
How
creating
come?
the
Yes,
world?
yes. If I pretended to give you an answer, I will give you one answer. If I give you on the same meeting, you met me and I gave you two answers, and I said, "Oh, I have two answers for you," and they're slightly similar, but they're slightly different. And I'm not going to tell you which to choose. You say, "Hey, you're making fool of yourself. You're not giving me an answer." Yes, so Genesis does not give an answer. It doesn't pretend to be giving an answer.
Well, it was just God saying, "Let there be light, let there be this, let there be that," and it all was. But
Yes, that must have happened.
yeah, so
It's a mathematical necessity that God spoke into the material and made the world and made life. It just cannot happen any other way mathematically.
okay, so now you're a theist. That's interesting.
Yeah, but I have no idea what is this theos that I'm a theos about. Just have no
Well,
idea what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm a
the
theist.
creator. How about that?
Okay, okay, so I'm saying there is a creator. Fine. I cannot
Mm.
say any other word past it. Is it bad? Is it good? Is it tall? Is it short? I have
I
no
think you're
idea.
supposed to believe he's good.
That's the Judeo-Christian God. He's good. Yes, I don't dispute
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
but
because people would argue with each other. You have to believe he's good, or the whole thing won't work. Because if you believe that God is evil, then you'll hate him and then you'll disobey him.
why
Right.
should I hate? Why should I hate him? I mean,
Well, there are people who, rush into polytheism because, it's, oh, I hate Jews. I hate the idea of worshipping Jesus, who was a Jew, and I hate Muslims, so I'm going to polytheism. That's how a lot of these white nationalists think.
look, if I were to speak with God, which I'm not going to, I would have asked him about the Holocaust. And I cannot accept him as a good God unless before I got the answer, which I'm not going to get. But it doesn't mean that I hate him. It just means that I haven't heard the answer and will never hear the answer.
Well, Avigdor Miller has a certain view of it, and I think the Jewish view would be suffering is punishment for sin. Um, and I guess ultra Orthodox Jews would say it's because Jews in Germany were assimilating too much. And obviously Jews are forbidden to marry Gentiles.
I lost you there. As for sin, some Orthodox Jews said sin is the punishment. You cannot. It's the same thing. Sin and punishment are the same act. But how did it go? The discussion go from there. I lost you.
You were saying that because of the Holocaust, you deny the existence of God. if I understood you correctly.
No, I said that I cannot accept the fact that this is a good God. But I cannot accept it doesn't mean deny. I'm saying I'm stuck here and uttering a sentence, God is good and God is or God is bad, is the same because I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. It might be
Well,
good, it might be bad, it might be just medium. I have no idea.
well, perhaps we don't know the reason yet, or some of us don't know the reason yet. And I've heard people equate it to, a child being smacked because it won't stop putting its fingers into a power socket. And there was just no other way for the parent to stop it from doing that other than to smack it for, sticking its fingers and, metal things into the power socket. So that was the only way to tell the child not to do it. But obviously, the child, doesn't understand electricity and electrocution and being dead because of electric shock. So
This is a story. How does it connect to our reality? I just don't see the connection. How this story fits anything.
well, I'm saying even if a lot of historical events, when it happens at the time, are not clear to the people living through that event until later, when you have this thing called a historical or long-term perspective, and then you see, oh yes, there was a pattern to Western civilization, and they're always doing this, and they think that, and but I
Fine.
guess if you were living at the time, it was all chaos and horror, and there didn't seem to be any, rhyme or reason to it. It's only, later that, historians in their, ability to discuss ideas in the comfort of, their universities, that ideas about that explain the present can come about, in the way historians, try to explain the present.
Yeah, but there is the survivor bias. Any generation of people, anytime, will look back at history and say, well, it was all for the good in the end. By the fact that they were there and they were there to speak the words.
Yeah, so I mean, you could say, oh, there was this terrible war and this terrible massacre, but then you could be totally callous and say, well, these people were going to die anyway. What's a big deal, kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
Eventually we are all, in the long run, we are all dead. But I suppose if you did believe in a perfectly moral God, then God would send you to the right place after you are dead, according to how you behaved and whether you obeyed his laws. And even if you did die horribly, you would be rewarded in heaven. Blah blah blah. You know the story. And then we think, okay. I mean, if we did believe that, we would be comforted and soothed by that. God would have rewarded the people who suffer terribly, because that's the sort of thing he does.
Okay, and of course, I can have no comment on that because, as Skywalks 609 says, how would I know? My intellect is.
We don't know.
Okay, so
But what I'm trying to
Skywalks
say
has
is,
identified me correctly. I just don't know.
no.
I can speak. I mean, I came here to speak about the TLC and, by extension, the Jordan Peterson sphere. Unfortunately, the discussion has pivoted towards God, and
because the TLC are always talking about God, so we're not,
Yes,
doing something completely
yes, they do.
weird.
Yes, but do you think that any two of them agree? What God did is that none of them agree. I mean, they talk about God, the understanding that the term itself is so vague that not two of them will agree on it.
Well, I mean, I think there is a classical theory that Jews and Muslims, even if they're not particularly fond of each other, will be able to attribute causation, like suffering is punishment for sin, right? I mean, this is the book of Job, right? It
No, vice versa. Job teaches us that punishment is not
necessarily punishment for sin.
Yeah.
It
Can come just
is a trial. It could be a trial. Because the idea was Job didn't do anything wrong. So his trial was that, well, his reward was he got a book in the Bible all to himself. And that's how he lives on in the minds of Jews, Christians, and Muslims.
Okay.
Because his story is so significant. To make the point that suffering is either punishment for sin or a test to qualify us to have something better than what we already have.
Well, if I asked Job at the end of the book, will you do it again? I mean, at the end, you came out quite well. I mean, you're rich and you have everything you wanted, and you get your own book and you got a name for yourself. Would you go over this whole ordeal again? If I were Job,
I think he would have to say yes, because because to say no would be an act of ingratitude to God. It's like, well, I gave you a book, Job, in the Tanakh, and you're saying that you wouldn't do it again, So I guess he would have to say yes. And this reminds me of PVK saying, was Job wise was Job wise to not curse God?
A sec, I need to find out something.
Okay, I'll read.
Do you want to wait for the actual other account or done anyway?
I will get ready. Well, sorry, I'm living in war times and I'm being now targeted by some Iranian missiles, so I will have to quit and I will join you perhaps in 10 minutes. Apologies.
Okay, all right. I'll keep talking. Stay safe, Yoav. Now let me complete my thought. So I'm saying, Job got his own book in the Bible, and which is, well, quite an achievement. Not everybody gets their own book in the Bible and lives on for so long. And we can imagine if Job just had an uneventful life and he was just a good guy and he enjoyed his wealth and his children and nothing bad happened to him, then there wouldn't be much of a story, would there? And nobody would care. So that's something we should consider. Maybe we do need a few tests and trials to test our worthiness to enjoy extraordinary rewards, or just to get to the better place in the afterlife. So let me try and gather my thoughts about the TLC. Well, yes, thank you, Yoav, for reminding me about the TLC being an offshoot of Jordan Peterson. And Jordan Peterson is a kind of Protestant pope of social conservatism, except that he refuses to say whether or not he believes in God, and he tries to avoid questions like saying, by asking, what is God? And I'm saying only the most powerful being conceivable is worth discussing. Why would you, even bother talking about Zeus or the god of Spinoza, or, there'd just be no point. You just talk about the number one God. I'm not sure what you mean, Jason, when you say the only way to see God's face is to see each other. Well, we're not we're not supposed to think of God in an anthropomorphic way, and I know this is something Christians will keep slipping into, and thinking of him as a man, which Jews and Muslims just go ape at. But this is the problem with Christianity. The whole way that it's supposed to work is to terrorize the subjects of these Christian monarchs who would say, well, if you're upset, pray to Jesus. Don't question the religion of your monarch. Pay your taxes, obey the law, and you should be okay. And you're not supposed to ask questions. And there are really no rules, because the monarch might change a few rules here and there, and you'd have to like it or lump it. It's only with a constitutional republic that you can say, oh, but that's against the First Amendment, and we have, all these rights that we have under the Bill of Rights. And it smartens you up. To know there are rules will make you take an interest in understanding what these rules and what these rules are, and deciding, who is a rule breaker and who is a rule keeper. And that is how you judge the integrity of anyone aspiring to be your leader. So isn't that helpful, or not really? You don't care? Because I think the worst thing about Christianity is how it perpetuates this kind of confusion. And now you have no guidance, because the churches are too afraid to give any guidance. And in any case, they were only creatures of the state. So almond tree, I don't know why you think. Okay, I haven't read the Mahabharata, but it's a bunch of stories, right? And you don't even know if they're true. And it doesn't sound like they're true. They're just stories made up. I'll look it up. Well, in a way, it's mysterious, and in a way, it's not, because the theory of the Abrahamic God is actually quite easy to understand. So the Mahabharata is a story about a war of succession, of a fight between two groups of princely cousins. It contains philosophical and devotional material, such as a discussion of the four goals of life. And I know it's very long, 100,000 verses, right? So, the thing is, it's not an organized religion, and Hindus have not acquired much in the way of empire. and it's idolatry. So Skyworks, my eternal critic, says, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not sure what subject you're referring to. Okay, I don't know about all this essence thing. The theory of God is very, very easy to understand. The Abrahamic God either exists, or we know that he's supposed to be omnipotent, omniscient, perfectly moral, eternal, and supreme. If you can remember these 5 descriptions of him. And being Christian, Jason will, keep talking about God's face and God's legs and God's arms and God's, it's you're not supposed to, but you can't help it because of 1700 years of having it being forced into you, this idea that God is a man. And you won't get it out of your heads, and maybe you want to think of God as being a man because it's the only way you can relate to it. I mean, if you were horses, I guess you'd think God is a horse, right? But if you think about it, why would you expect an inventor to be like its invention, like his invention? If you invented a machine, are you a machine? If you carved a chair, are you wood? But no, Christians just they can't get over these, they don't care. They don't care if it's logical or not. They just want to believe whatever they want to believe. And then, when things don't turn out well for them, they can always blame Jews, yes? I know there is a verse in, I don't even know. Yeah, was it Exodus? And it's a story of, it describes Moses being handed the Torah on Mount Sinai, and Moses being too afraid to look at God directly, and he was kind of peeking through his fingers when God was moving away, and he saw the back of God moving away, and then I think it's actually said the backside of God moving away, and then I couldn't help but have a little giggle at the idea. And so there are many anthropomorphic references to God in both the Bible and the Quran, but if God is omnipotent, surely he can use metaphors. Skyworks asked, how many gods are there? There is only one worthy of consideration. No, but God, the Abrahamic God, is, as I have said, omniscient, omnipotent, perfectly moral, supreme, and eternal. I mean, you don't have to accept his actual existence, but that's a theory of God. I've heard a Jew say, belief in God is letting a policeman into your mind. I don't understand your question. If there's one God, then there must be one wrong. I don't know what that means. Okay, well, I'm sorry you can't join us, Jason, but perhaps next time. Well, I mean, the difference between the Mahabharata is the Torah is quite short, right? You know, Jews, they just read the Torah year in, year out, and then they go through, and it's quite short. You see, it's just the first 5 books of the Pentateuch and the Mahabharata. I mean, how many pages is it? So what Jews do is they examine in minute detail, the reasons for all the events, and this reinforces their identity. It's kind of like it's like a soap opera, and like, why did he do that? And did it mean this? Did it mean that? And they still discuss what the sin of Moses might have been, because he didn't live to see the promised land, and they're not completely agreed on what his sin was, and they don't say that he was perfect, like Jesus, because it's already admitted that he did quite a few things wrong, and even in the Quran it does actually say that Muhammad might have been guilty of a few, minor transgressions. I don't know. Oh, okay, so the difference between the Mahabharata and the Torah is that the Torah is very short, and Jews who regularly go to shul will know it inside out. Or if you listen to lectures, the cycle repeats itself, and the same things are discussed again and again in a cycle, in rotation, and you get to know the characters really well. But the Mahabharata, well, it's a bit long-winded, and you're not even sure if it's really true. And I don't think Hindus do a reading of the Mahabharata with its 100,000 verses. Okay, I will check how many pages the Mahabharata is. So if you wanted to buy it, if you wanted to order it from, okay, the complete Mahabharata, volumes 1 to 12. So that's a bit long, right? Now I'm clicking on the PDF. And it's still loading. How many pages? Let me see. Slowly loading, slowly. 1,000 pages? 500 pages? Compared to the first 5 books of the Pentateuch. And well, have the Hindus acquired much in the way of empire? I would say not. And the whole idea of believing in the Abrahamic God and getting and basically allowing a policeman into your mind is, so that your behavior and your conscience is policed. Now it's finally loaded, 6,808 pages. So nobody's ever going to read that, right? So better forget about that. Oh. Hi, Yoav.
Back?
You're back. Welcome back.
Yeah. Last I left with a job. Progress made since then?
Yes, I was actually talking about the Mahabharata and comparing it to the Torah, which is, well, very short compared to the 6,808 pages of the Mahabharata, which I noticed was its length on the PDF document I've looked at.
Luckily, nobody asked me to study the big one. I would like to comment about Genesis 1:27. God created humanity in his own image, both male and female. Can I make the reverse deduction? If man is created in God's image, maybe I can deduce from man to God, and sort of study man and hope to find more about the nature of God by studying man. And that is actually something that I know about. That is my profession. I have been in the business of imaging since 1988. And what I can tell you that you cannot learn from the image to the object. For example, I was in photography. I worked in Kodak once. So say that you're holding a photograph of a nice girl, a blonde girl with a red dress, and you study the photograph real hard. What do you know about the girl? Nothing.
Except how she looks.
Yeah. How she looks from one angle. You have no idea. You don't no idea how she would look from behind. Well, in the story you would, because you have seen many girls, and you can deduce from experience. If you see one from the front, you can sort of make a very good educated guess how she will look from behind. But I haven't seen many gods. So I don't know from looking in front how we would look from behind.
Yes, I suppose, but you could maybe predict by the shape of a woman's face whether she's overweight or not overweight.
I don't know how thick she is, except by experience of seeing many.
Yes, perhaps you could think that face, but pass her on the street and without recognizing her.
So my point is, yes, God is made in the image of God, but then I cannot deduce nothing of God from studying men.
Well, if you want to go by the atheist view of how God came to be created by man, you could think, well, God was a figment of man's imagination, conjured up to protect him from himself, to comfort him, because we all fear suffering, death, and injustice. And we want to be told everything will be all right in the end.
Well, I said it earlier, by the theory of, by Jordan Peterson, God is future personified. And once you personify something, then you attribute human character. And then he said he might be guarding me, he might be angry with me, he might be pleased with me. All sorts of things you do to something when you personified it. But it's just your mind not being able to deal with something that is not personified.
Yes. I was thinking also that I don't know if you heard me say that if you do decide to believe in the Abrahamic God, you are actually letting a policeman into your head. And when you do this, you are creating in yourself a better self. And and your ordinary self, your natural self, who wants to do things, and not all of them are necessarily approved of by God. But
Yeah.
but if you do decide to believe in God, then you have a better self saying, no, 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 Yoav, you mustn't do that, naughty boy. You're because you believe in God now, because you want to go to heaven, and you want Him to protect you from suffering and death and injustice. Da, da, da. So I guess that's a bargain.
Yeah, but Jordan Peterson will put the horses and the cart in different order. He will say it starts when with you deciding that you're going to be better, that you're going to be good, and you're going to try to be better, and then you're trying to pray, like imagine how would it look like being better? How could it? What possibly could I be that is better? And through that search, you arrive to the concept of God, and not vice versa.
Well, I suppose it's kind of like the principle of the thing. If there's a heaven to get into, I want to go there. I don't want to go to the other place. And I guess even if it doesn't exist, I maybe should behave myself well, so that people like me and trust me, and I'm more successful, and then I'll be happier. That kind of idea, I guess.
Yeah, but success. You cannot do everything in the world. In order to achieve success, you have to go through a path. You have to try to do some things, and give up doing other things. And it's the selection that is the difficult part.
What do you find most hard to do? I imagine it would be keeping the Sabbath, because I mean, I don't know if you have the urge to eat shellfish and pork, but
Well, this is where I very much resemble our friend Jacob, because he sort of everybody. The Jews has a group contract with God. All the Jews should do this, and all Jews should do that. And Jacob is on a private contract. He doesn't keep
it's
the
not a
Sabbath.
what? Sorry, I didn't catch what you said.
On a private contract. He has made his own contract with God. He doesn't keep the Sabbath. He doesn't eat the proper food. But he believes that he's doing. He's believing that he's the. As I said, it's a private contract.
Yes. So, I guess in a way it's true of all of us. We sincerely believe that our interpretation of what God's law or God's will is correct. But we also accept it may not be. But I mean, there should be some kind of procedure for this, because we know that Catholics, they have a pope. So at least a pope, in theory, will say, on this matter of Catholic doctrine, this is my final word on the matter, and I'm the supreme authority on Catholicism, and the same for people who have religious leaders. But interestingly, Jews do not have a supreme rabbi.
Yeah,
and I guess you don't want one either, do you? Because it's sort of
no, it's not. That's a matter of principle here. Let's again take Jacob, for example. he knows that he's in a grave danger, because once he's selecting his own path, he said, I am on private contract. Then what to keep him from making a mistake, choosing the wrong path? And he realizes that he has to tie himself to a source of authority. So first of all, he will put the 5 books, the first book of the Bible, as a source of authority, undisputed, as an axiom.
Mm-hmm.
Because one has to put an axiom somewhere. And then he will say, I will choose a rabbi who is very learned in those books,
Mm-hmm.
and who's taken more time and he has more brains than I am. And I will listen to this rabbi. And I do what he tells me to do when I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
But if I realize that he is obviously mistaken or he's gone bad, then I reserve the right to switch to another rabbi.
Mm-hmm. And you think that's the correct procedure? I suppose. I know Rabbi Mizrahi says, there are these Jews who have one rabbi for this business and another rabbi for spiritual matters and yet another rabbi for, something else. So, and he's saying, that's not quite correct. But
could be, but there are the counter examples. There are Jews who just choose one rabbi for everything.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but it's sort of like, a lawyer's opinion, and if you don't like the opinion of this lawyer, you get the opinion of another lawyer whose opinion you like better, but you won't know if it's true unless you actually do decide to litigate on the matter, and then you'll get a win or a lose for your legal action. But in the meantime, you can shop around.
Well, in that aspect, there is no judge, but it's a democratic process with Judaism. You go by the majority.
Yes, but then you have this idea of rabbinical consensus, and then it'd be, well, what kind of Jew are you? Sephardi, Ashkenazi?
There's no consensus, but there is a majority. There is a majority.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, in most questions, you can identify a majority.
Yeah, it's like the sort of peer review thing, and I always thought that that's kind of a bit suspect, because a lot of this peer review stuff is sort of like maybe you're just good at schmoozing people and getting people to be your
Don't
friend.
start me on peer review. It's just such. I'm so disappointed. Jews don't tend to schmooze each other. If at all, they are on the quarreling side. There's no danger of the peer review being too favorable. Skyworks asks, what does you think the best example of a person is? Exactly what I said. The Bible is full of bad examples. To give you a very long list of bad examples. Who is the best of them? The one who is the least bad. And people are quoting Moses or they're quoting David. But every one of them is good in his own way. Okay, Job. I haven't really got to Job. Well, I was putting myself at the place of Job at the end of the book. And I was asking myself, am I signing on this book, yes or no? And my answer is, I can't. Because you have the sons of Job, the sons of daughter Job that were killed in the first chapter. I don't mind if I have new ones, shiny new ones, and even better ones. I cannot sign on the book unless I get permission from them and they're dead.
I don't understand. Permission from whom when they are dead? I don't understand.
Can me as Job, at the end of the book of Job, do I approve of the story? Do I say, okay, that was for the good? I want this story to have happened. And I said, no, I cannot make this decision. The dead people have to agree with me first.
So you haven't got a character in mind, a prophet in mind that you think best exemplifies. I suppose you have to say Moses because he was the one who had all the adventures.
Yes,
and got the book handed to him by God.
I have images in my mind, of course. And this is why I can relate to the Abrahamic God. Because Abraham is my forefather. So who do I relate to? First of all, I relate to my own father. And I take him as an example. And then I take to his father. And I take him as a better example. And so on and so forth ad infinitum, or let's say up to Abraham. And that infinite series, that's God for me.
Well, I suppose being Jewish, you would have to go by Moses because he's the first Jew. Because before the Torah was handed to Moses on Mount Sinai, there were no Jews.
Well, strictly speaking, Judah is the first Jew. Abraham,
it seems to me like he was a Noahide.
My statement was it's an infinite series. It doesn't start. I cannot locate a point where it starts. Because every man that I can name has a father. Moses has a father. Abraham had a father. His father has a father. So it doesn't stop.
Yeah, but the father of Abraham sold idols.
Yeah, we all make our mistakes.
Yeah. So we all have, parents and ancestors, but we're just talking about, I guess ourselves.
Okay, so Abraham rebelled against his father. Sometimes this generational rebellion is good. My father rebelled against his father. My grandfather was, as I told you once, an Orthodox Jew. I never said that. You keep saying it. I didn't say that.
Oh, I suppose I like to think of you as having a grandfather who's a rabbi.
But both my Orthodox grandfather and my father, my rebellious father, they are both right. They are both models for me. And what is my God? The infinite series. All of them.
Well, I suppose we all have our lives to lead, and we have very different decisions to lead in our lives that will be, different to the time of our parents or grandparents. We have,
Yeah, I have to make it clear for Skyworks because it's crucial. No finite bunch of characters and people are God. An infinite series of them is the closest that my mind can conceive of God.
What is the closest your mind can conceive of God? I'm not sure I
I cannot
understand.
conceive of God. I said it many times. I cannot possibly conceive of God. I cannot, because of my training, conceive of an infinite series, a countable infinite series of things. The countable infinite series of fathers is my best approximation at God.
Oh, infinite regression.
Yes, exactly.
But the problem has been solved by considering God to be the uncaused first cause.
Yes. But what happens if the series is infinite? Well, it isn't. But then we get to the question of the beginning of life. And this is where our understanding stops, and we cannot say anything further than that.
Well, I mean, you either assume that the universe was always there and didn't need God to create it, or that,
Yes.
there was the Big Bang and everything was once, a singularity, and then something happened and the universe began to expand, and it was God that caused it.
Singularity is a geometrical trick. In geometry, you can bend the line so the line will not disappear. For example, the shape of hyperbole. It reaches the infinity at zero. Yeah, but it's just because the line is bent. It's a smoke and mirrors trick saying that the world starting at the singularity of the Big Bang, saying that it is stretches from the present to the past infinitely is the same.
I don't understand. What is the same?
1 over x. Okay? The function y equals y over x. It reaches infinity at zero. Yeah?
I'm afraid I don't really understand these things.
Yeah, but you realize that 1 over x, where x equals 0, is infinity. That you realize.
Not
Yeah?
really, I'm afraid.
Okay, so again, my training, my mind is shaped by my training. And because of that...
So what's this mathematical thing you're talking about that I should know about? The x, y, infinity, zero thing?
Never mind, I will approach it from a different point of view. Jacob's ladder. I'm not talking about the Discord server, I'm talking the one in the Bible. It's something that has one point, one edge of it, it starts from the ground and not anywhere in the ground. It's just next to Jacob's head. I mean, it's there, it's here and there. And it stretches all the way to the heavens. And the angels are climbing down from it. And it has steps. So when they're climbing down, they go step by step. Just, can you imagine the picture? Yeah, it's a ladder. It has steps. And it's put on the ground here, and it stretches all the way to infinity. Can you imagine that? You're muted. Okay, she's muted. So I will monologue. So the beginning of the ladder is here and now. So I'm starting, and I make the Jordanian Peterson decision that I'm going to be good, which in this metaphor is I'm going to climb up. So I'm putting one leg on the first step, and then I put another leg on the second, and I start climbing. And because I am human, sometimes I sleep. Sometimes I sleep quite badly. Sometimes I get dizzy and I go the wrong way. I think I'm going up, but actually I'm going down. After an infinite amount of time, I will get there, to the top of the ladder.
I think I'll have to re-listen to what you just said, because I had to I was distracted, and also I have to go, and I guess it is my turn to excuse myself. But I will definitely listen to what you said about Jacob's ladder, and I hope we can discuss it next time, Yoav. And thank you very much.
As long as this war is going on, I will have lots of spare time.
Okay. All right. Well, take care and stay safe. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye.